Okay, good evening and welcome to tonight's Monroe City Council meeting. This is the City Council meeting for March 21st, 2023. The time right now is 7 p.m. Going to ask our clerk Wyckoff, please, to call the roll. Yeah, yes. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members present and establishing a quorum are council members Fulcher, Kinney, Hanford, Davis, Gamble, Fisher, and Scarborough. And for the record, Councilmember Fisher is attending remotely.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Davis, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
With liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is a time set aside for members of the public to speak to the City Council on any issue related to the City of Monroe, except any quasi-judicial matter that is subject to a public hearing. 3 minutes are afforded to each speaker. If you'd like to speak this evening, please go ahead and raise your hand if you're in the audience. Or please raise your hand if you are remote or hit *9. All right, seeing no hands raised, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. That next item would be the consent agenda, and I turn to council. Councilmember Davis, go ahead.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. I understand that the motion is to approve the consent agenda as approved in the packet. I have a motion from Councilmember Davis, a second from Councilmember Scarborough. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, we'll move to vote. All in favor? All opposed? Councilmember Fisher, did you vote aye? Yes? Councilmember Fisher, do I understand that you voted yes? Okay, as Councilmember Fisher, can you hear us? Councilmember Fisher, real quick, can you hear us? All right, we're gonna log that vote as a 7-0 because I did not hear an opposed. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. That item would be new business item number 6.1. Increase the number of human resources coordinator position from part-time 20 hours per week to full-time 40 hours a week. And I will turn to Director Worthen, who tonight is seat 16.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The request before you is to move the current part-time HR coordinator to a full-time position effective April 1st. This request will be funded using salary savings in the HR and executive department. That means I'm not asking for more money. Salary range will be consistent with other like positions at the city, and the reason is due to the workload of the HR department. And that is end of my report. I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions or a motion? I turn to Councilmember Scarborough. Councilmember Scarborough.
Ben, where did you say the money is coming from?
There's salary savings in the executive and the human resources department
And that's consistent through the years to come.
for the next 2 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Fulcher, go ahead.
I move to authorize the human resources position from part-time to full-time and establishing a pay range for the position.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fulcher, a second from Councilmember Kinney for the requested action as shown on the screen for new business item 6.1. Before we move to see if there's any deliberation, please let the record show that Councilmember Fisher is not currently in the panel. So we will show that he will not be here for the vote unless he pops on. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, again under new business, item 6.2. Create Engineer 1 EIT position and modify existing senior engineer title. Mr. Worthen again, AKA seat 16.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, Council, tonight before you is establishing an engineer 1 position and also changing the senior engineer position to an engineer 3. Many years ago, when we started out this look for an engineer, the title at the time was senior engineer. We've since the market's changed, and now the individuals don't want to be called senior engineer. They want to be called engineer 3, which it used to be 12 years ago, and so we're morphing backwards. And so we've actually tried this out. Jake and I've advertised and got more candidates that have actually applied for the engineer 3 than the senior engineer. So we just need to reflect the salary schedule to be consistent to keep the finance department happy. The second part is creating an engineer 1 position, because right now finding civil engineers to work with cities is very challenging. So we're just attempting to either find an engineer 3 or an engineer 1. We still only have 1 position left to fill, but our goal is to find an engineer that could be more experienced or earlier in the career.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from council or a motion? Councilmember Kinney, go ahead.
I move to authorize the addition of the engineer 1 and salary range and modify the senior engineer title in the salary schedule to senior engineer 3.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Councilmember Kinney, a second from Councilmember Hanford. Councilmember Kinney, I understand that it's for the requested action as typed in the screen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
With the parentheticals. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is councilmember reports. We'll start again this side. Councilmember Gamble, go ahead.
Just that the auction is this Friday for Monroe Public School Foundation. Get on there and register. There is a ton of really, really cool items to raise money for a lot of things that are near and dear to a lot of us here in the valley. So including a very nice piece of artwork that was donated by the Scarborough family down on the far end down there, an original. And there's also an autographed guitar that was donated by Councilmember Kinney. And I think there might be some coffee in there, a few things. So just it's full representation across the board. So really do appreciate everybody that has already donated. And then obviously getting people to bid on the items is where we really make a difference. So if you haven't done already, please go on the social and share off of your social media profiles if you're so inclined. I have one out on mine. Go ahead and share it, and then let's get people on the East Coast too. Maybe we can get them to pay more than what the item's worth, so we get more money for kids here. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we're going to hopscotch. Councilmember Fisher, for the record, is back in the panel. Councilmember Fisher, you're in the panel. If you could turn on your video when you have a chance, I'd appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and skip down to Councilmember Scarborough. Councilmember reports. Go ahead.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Fisher, any report this evening? All right, Councilmember Fulcher, go ahead.
I'll get back to you next week. Well, the week after, it'll be much better. I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanford, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was informed about the economic alliance of Snohomish County trip to DC in May. And so just looking forward to attending that and making sure everybody knows that that's coming up. So
All right,
be great if we could have great city representation like we did last time.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then Councilmember Kenny, go ahead.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and hop down now to the staff and department reports under 8.1. We have the police department report with Chief Jolly, who I believe is also seat 16 tonight. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I have the monthly report. It's contained within your packet. I would just want to point out a couple of items on the first page. Just a note on self-initiated calls. If you look under 2023 year to date versus 2022 year to date, there's a significant change, a huge increase in the number of self-initiated activities. This is due to a number of things, including less restrictions on COVID, some of the tools that law enforcement has been able to get back through legislative changes has enabled us to more readily address problems that are observed out in the field. So this is a good thing and is just an anecdotal snapshot of what we're able to do when we have the right tools in our tool bag. And then on the last page, I would just point out Javier Patton is a volunteer member of the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. It's similar to a scouting program or an explorer post, and it centers around the United States Navy. They drill down there at the Everett Drill Center on the same weekends as the regular Navy Reserve. So he volunteers for this, and these fine young men and women dedicate their lives and their time to learning the value traditions. They do the same coursework that people in the regular Navy do, and they follow the various things and have opportunities to go on floats during the summer or various schools, 2-week schools. But we hosted them here, and just as a message to support the youth as well as Javier and his endeavors in the Sea Cadet Corps. And we just wanted to point that out and really appreciate his efforts.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions for Chief Jolly? All right, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and move on now to the City Administrator Report, 9.1. Administrator Knight, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking ahead to the extended agenda, next week's meeting, both the P3 committee meeting and the regular council meeting have been canceled. So we'll have a night off, and then looking forward to the first meeting in April on April 4th. That's a study session. We do have a public safety committee meeting planned. We have a couple of new business items, including professional standards, bias-based policing, pursuit review, and a municipal court quarterly report from Judge Ness. Looking at the regular study session, which would start at 7 p.m., we don't have any items for that study session. And so we would be looking for a motion from the city council to cancel that study session unless something appears for the agenda.
Okay, council members, is there any interest in canceling the meeting on April 4th? That would be the next meeting, which means that if we're going to cancel it, you'll want to do that this evening. Otherwise, do we have the ability to cancel it last minute on our own? Okay, so your choice. Councilmember Fulcher, go ahead.
I move to cancel the study session meeting on April 4th.
I have a motion to cancel the April 4th meeting from Councilmember Fulcher, a second from Councilmember Hanford. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to vote. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion passes, and I will note for the record that Councilmember Fisher is not in the panel and is therefore not part of the vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next item, Administrative Knight.
Thank you. We are moving on to the city administrator report.
9.2. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So the first item that we have is looking for some feedback from the city council on a request that came from the Association of Washington Cities to support House Bill 1628. There is some information up on the screen that provides some additional explanation. House Bill 1628 would provide 2 new real estate excise tax sources dedicated to affordable housing. There is a local 0.25% councilmatic local option. So that would be at council's discretion. That would generate for the city of Monroe approximately $986,000, which could be used towards permanent affordable housing. So that doesn't necessarily imply that the city would have to build that housing, only that we would have to use it for that purpose. So we could contract, for example, with a nonprofit like Housing Hope to provide them some additional revenue to build affordable housing. The other thing that this bill does, which is kind of interesting, that's not included on the slide, is it does harmonize the first quarter % and the second quarter % of real estate excise tax. And for members of the Finance Committee that were a part of the meeting earlier this evening, that is the revenue source that we're using in order to pay for the municipal campus bonds. So we could, if this bill passed, use either the first quarter or the second quarter %. Right now, there are slightly different uses between the two. I know, I see our finance director
Yeah.
like raising her eyebrow. It
Yeah,
was
these
one
are-
of the,
yeah.
it was one of the proposed changes in the amendment to the bill. So what we're looking for is council direction or discussion around whether or not this is the type of bill that the council would be interested in supporting. And then we would be a part of then a number of other cities across Washington state that are in favor of this legislation. So any questions from council members?
And just for my, my thoughts, council members, is that this is something the council could choose to do or choose not to do. So it's one of those local options that if you as a body or a future grouping of you and me's ever wanted to, you would have the option to do this. I think that the harmonizing REIT 1 and REIT 2 is a really positive thing. REIT 1 has limitations on it that REIT 2 doesn't, and or vice versa. And ever since I've been involved in local government, that's always been a confusing point because you can only use REIT 1 for these things and REIT 2 for these things, or vice versa. And that harmonizing would be a positive, I think, for us. It would give us more flexibility with some of the projects that we need to do. So my recommendation to the council would be to consider supporting it. But again, this is a policy thing, and I didn't know where council stood on it and felt in this particular situation, my preference was to see what your direction was rather than taking a stand on it. Councilmember Scarborough, go ahead.
Yes, does this mean that we would add a 1/4% to what tax?
Administrator Knight, or
So that would be this upon the sale of real estate. So it's the real estate excise tax. So when any property is sold, there's a collection right now of 2/4%, what's called the first quarter and the second quarter. This would add a 3/4 percent. That 3/4 percent would be dedicated to providing permanent affordable housing.
Okay,
And-
thank you.
Councilmember, just to make certain that I'm on the same page, Administrator Knight, I understand that would be an option for the council, not a
Correct.
requirement.
It is not a requirement. So it would be an optional tax. It's the same as REIT 1 and REIT 2, which is the real estate excise tax, first quarter percent REIT 1 and second quarter percent REIT 2. Those were optional taxes at the time that the council adopted them. They were adopted back when the Growth Management Act was passed, and they were adopted to provide the support for the infrastructure needed to implement the Growth Management Act. So now they're proposing to add a 3/4 percent in order for local governments to be able to provide affordable housing. You're welcome.
Any other questions or thoughts on direction from council members? Is there any concern with the council supporting, signing in support of this? Okay, all right. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we will log in favor of this. Thank you, everybody, for considering that. Deborah? Administrator Knight.
Thank you. So the next couple of items are all save the dates items for council members. Our next records roundup day is Monday, the 27th. And just a reminder, we will close City Hall in order to clean out and archive records. We have a Finish 522 Coalition meeting scheduled for Wednesday, April 12th from 4 to 5 p.m. We're going to be sending out a save the date before the end of the week. So we'll have that out to council members to add to your calendars. We do also have scheduled a meeting to support Finish 522 with our state elected officials. We know it's going to be a Wednesday in May, but we're not yet certain which Wednesday that is. We're currently working with our state legislators to pick the date that works best for them. An item that's not on this list that I wanted to bring to council's attention is that we will be hosting our first open house for our comprehensive plan. And that is going to be on April 13th. That's a Thursday. And that'll be at Park Place Middle School. And they're still determining whether or not a 6 p.m. or a 7 p.m. start time is going to work best for everybody. And again, we'll send out a save the date notice for that as well, but that'll be coming up shortly. And then finally, we received notice that the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County is moving its DC trip from its traditional October to May 15th. I was asked how much money is remaining in the council's travel budget. There was $25,000 set aside for council travel over the 2-year biennium, so 2023 and 2024. We have about $18,500 of that $25,000 remaining. So that gives you an idea about how much there's left to spend. That doesn't include all of the expenses that have yet to be charged against the account for the National League of Cities. So that gives you just kind of a general idea of the remaining budget for council travel. And then, oh, that's it. I checked off all those boxes. So I've given my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Administrator Knight? All right. So going on to the mayor's report on 9.3, before we jump into probably just one or two small items. If you are interested in attending the Economic Alliance Snohomish County, please reach out to Administrator Knight.
Sure.
Right.
That would work.
To Administrator Knight to discuss going in May, if that's something you're interested in doing. And I think that's all with that. Just to see. I always reach this point, and I know that I had a busy week last week. Just in terms of legislation, one of the things I just wanted to share with the council, you'll see in your email. I signed us in as con for a new bill that would require that law enforcement, firefighters, and other emergency responders not have to speak, not have to read or write in English. One of the concerns I had after having been an emergency responder myself is just the importance of being able to communicate both by voice, but also in writing and in reading in common language, and having a common actual language is important. I had a conversation with Kyle, with Councilmember Fisher last week about an issue related to language, and he reaffirmed why some of the changes in language make it hard for emergency responders. So reflecting on that conversation, some FEMA training I took, I figured the council would be okay with us signing in con. I acknowledge the importance of bringing people in with different experiences and levels of English proficiency when it comes to emergency response. I want to make certain the chief, even if we have a workaround within our own police department, if you're operating with Sultan or Snohomish County or the FBI in an emergency situation, we need to be able to have a common language. And so I signed in against that. If you have any concerns, though, please reach out to me. I'll discuss it with you. But I tried to find the reason and kept coming back to practicality, and lives could be put in danger. So I think that's all I really have to report this evening. I'd encourage you to look at Monroe this week. And if you have any questions for me or anything, please let me know. And I did say that I thought we'd be done at 7:30. So if I keep talking, we're gonna lose. I know there was no money down though. Does anybody else have anything else for the good of the order? Okay, well, if there's no objection, we are adjourned. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.